The human experience would not be complete without pivotal moments, those events that switch around your life forever and set you on a whole new path. It could be the first game you ever won. Perhaps it was when one of your relatives died. Maybe it was when you met your best friend. For me, my life was flipped upside down when I was diagnosed with autism. It has led me to a series of therapies and a lifelong fight with my own mind, but has also taught me to harness my inner strength and become resistant to my limitations. In this speech, I will explain how I came to be diagnosed, the work put in to get me to where I'm at right now, and how that has all affected me personally. Since I was born, my parents were aware that I didn't behave like a normal child, but didn't really begin to believe that anything was amiss until they noticed my social skills, or lack thereof. I resisted all interaction with my family. I never talked to them, and I avoided making any kind of eye contact. From what they could tell, I was very smart for my age. I loved reading and could spend hours going through any books I could get my hands on, but I wouldn't utter a word. I also never let anyone touch me. Whenever anyone tried to hug me, I would sound like I was in pain. Bath time was a nightmare for my parents. I would cry the entire time they washed my hair or scrubbed my back. Although I didn't like them bathing me, I enjoyed being in the water with my bath toys and would ignore everyone around me, even if my little sister was in the tub with me. There were other odd symptoms I exhibited that didn't seem like things a normal child would do. I chewed my clothing and walked on the tips of my toes. Even though I was provided with a variety of toys, I never touched them. One time, my dad, in an effort to get me to play with them, took all my books away and put them in a box in our garage. This only resulted in me screaming and crying for hours until my parents gave in and finally returned my books to me. When I was 2, it was discovered that I was partially deaf, and I had surgery to replace my eardrums with artificial paper ones. My parents hoped that maybe this would eliminate my issues and I would start interacting with them, but this was not the case. Realizing that something must be very wrong, they took me to the Birth to 3 program through the Douglas County Health Services, and I worked with the people there over the summer. A few days before my 3rd birthday, on August 31st, 2000, I went to Dr. Sheila Mercer, a specialist in autism spectrum disorders. She performed a general observation, as well as one for social interaction, gross and fine motor skills, and verbal interaction. 3 hours later, she came back to my parents and told them that she had diagnosed me with Asperger's syndrome, a type of autism. Asperger's is a developmental disorder characterized by problems with nonverbal communication and social interaction. The main symptoms include restricted and repetitive behavior and interests, as well as physical clumsiness. People with Asperger's tend to be highly intelligent in their fields of interest, but usually disregard other information. According to Dr. Mercer's diagnosis, I would never tie my shoes, ride a bike without support, let alone drive a car, wash and brush my hair by myself, let people give me hugs, go to a public school, speak, or understand love. I believe her exact words to my mom and dad were, "Heather will never tell you she loves you." My parents were devastated. Every hope and dream they had already made for me was instantly shattered. Their firstborn child was expected to be nothing more than an antisocial vegetable. Although the news was heartbreaking, my parents were not and have never been quitters. They immediately sought out any and all treatments available to help me become as assimilated into normal society as possible. Prior to my diagnosis, the Birth to 3 program worked with me inside my home, offering speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy. When I turned 3, I was enrolled in my local elementary school's early childhood special education class, where I participated in regular preschool for social interaction. I also went to St. Mary's for occupational and sensory integration therapy. In September of 2000, less than a month after my diagnosis, I started attending the Scottish Rite Clinic in Duluth, Minnesota. My parents were told I would be there until my 9th birthday. However, I caught on to the way the treatments worked very quickly, and, with all the extra therapies and schooling, I graduated from the program in just 9 months. My treatment process wasn't all a success, though. Partway into my therapies, my parents were informed by their insurance company that none of my treatments were covered. My therapies cost $3,000 a month, so you can imagine that, for a middle-class family of 4, this was a huge financial blow. Rather than putting my health to the side, my mom and dad filed a lawsuit to get the insurance company to pay for my treatments. My dad's boss even petitioned the insurance board on behalf of my family and brought me in to show them what people with autism are like and the importance of getting them the help they need. The company gave us partial coverage, which, in the long run, wasn't a lot of help, and my parents had to make the decision to pull me from some of the therapies. To make up for it, my mom converted our basement into a therapy center, and took the knowledge she learned during my time at St. Mary's and Scottish Rite to give me my treatments at home. In the basement, we had a sandbox, a swimming pool, a ball pit, a swing, and several boxes of various items to give different texture options. To a normal kid, that all sounds like an awesome collection of toys and activities, but for me, it was my hospital. One of the therapies I received at home was the Will Barger brushing technique for sensory integration. This involved rubbing a special plastic bristle brush over my arms and legs every 2 hours a day for several weeks, which eventually dropped down to only twice a day. In 2004, when I was about 7 years old, I stopped treatments altogether and was completely mainstreamed into school. It was at that time that I really began to test my legs out in a world that was not designed around me, or rather, one for which I was not designed. The past 12 years have been just as much of a struggle as the years of treatment before them. I had to learn to control my symptoms and push myself to act as if they didn't exist. This meant making acquaintance with different textures that felt peculiar on my skin that looked normal to others, diving headfirst into social situations, not knowing whether they would end in a victory or the most uncomfortable moment of my life, and having to evaluate everything anyone ever said to me to see if there was some hidden meaning my brain couldn't recognize. People in my elementary school, whether they liked me or not, could always tell that something was different, if not wrong with me. My classmates didn't acknowledge me, their parents noticed me too much, and they all thought I was weird. I never saw it, but my mom could always hear the comments and snickers from the other moms about the Montauban girl. It wasn't until 6th grade when I gave a speech on Helen Keller and how she has inspired me to push against the limits of my mental illness that those parents realized why I was so different from the other kids. With each year, I got better. I shoved harder at my barriers and made small breakthroughs and each day to get to the point that I'm at now. In high school, things improved to some extent. The other students and adults viewed me simply as the nerd, which is a lot nicer than the retard. There are still some problems I have to deal with, like group conversations, being a klutz, and stepping out of my comfort zone in general, but I take them every minute at a time. In the past 15 years since I was initially diagnosed, I have overcome so much. 4 months after my 17th birthday, I passed my driver's test, on the first try. Last May, I graduated from my local public school at number 6 in the class. And, if it hasn't yet occurred to you, I've been giving a speech for this past some odd minutes, which, if I do say so myself, is quite impressive considering I was never supposed to talk. Besides recognizing my achievements and pitfalls, my Asperger's has taught me to encourage others. Every time I run into someone who has some kind of misconception on autism, I race to inform them on the correct facts and teach them about the struggle autistic people deal with every day. I'm high-functioning, meaning that my disorder isn't nearly as severe as others, so I advocate for more accessible treatments for those who have far worse symptoms than me. Last year, I gave a speech on why insurance companies should cover autism-related treatments in the Wisconsin Forensics Competition and received a gold medal at state. I hope my story can inspire others with mental issues to defy their odds and improve what they are really capable of. When I was just about to turn 3, I was told that I would amount to very little. I was informed that I had one of the most common disorders of our time and that it would control my life until the day I die. My diagnosis, for as long as I can remember, has been the thorn in my side, but has also become the reminder of what I have overcome. I took the phrases Heather can't and Heather won't and turned them into Heather will and Heather did. I've learned to walk through my personal hell and deal with my impairments every day. That pivotal moment turned my life into a battle, but it is a war I believe I'm winning.